I've been meaning to do a video like this for a while. I actually did make a start to this a few years ago, though I wasn't too happy with the quality and content of those videos. I wanted to do them more justice, so here we are again. I want to make this an ongoing series where I do my best to break down mental game concepts that you can apply to your personal melee progression. I feel the mental game is such an underrepresented and underutilized part of competition, particularly in fighting games. I want to alleviate any doubt or confusion about how it works, and in really simple terms, explain how to best use the techniques for yourself. I will be referencing a lot of books and resources in this series that I will include in the description. I will also be using plenty of visual examples along with personal experiences to illustrate my points. So, to get started with this series, let's begin with the most important thing, the foundation. The main text we're going to be referencing in the next several videos is going to be the mental game of poker. In this book, Tendler discusses how simply the way one perceives or understands learning or performance can create mental game issues. The vagueness and unfamiliarity can create a lot of tension for players, even causing them to tilt, have excessive symptoms of fear when playing, and issues with confidence. This can all be completely alleviated with the proper understanding. There are 3 theories that Tendler uses to help the reader improve their mental game, and they are as follows: the adult learning model, Inchworm, and the process model. These may all seem quite complex at first, but trust me, once you understand them, it feels like a switch flicks in your brain, or at least that's how it worked for me. Let's talk about them a bit in more detail then. The first thing that he mentions is that learning is an incredibly predictable process. Of course, there are unique parts that can be different from person to person. The point being is that you can logically break down how your learning is going, and this is how. Level 1, unconscious competence. This is the first level, and is the level where you don't know what you don't know. The best way to explain this is to remind yourself of the first time you learned about advanced tech. Before you knew it, it was completely invisible to you, but now that it's brought to your attention, you have this newfound knowledge. Level 2, conscious incompetence. The second level, now you're aware of this advanced tech, but you're not necessarily more skilled for simply knowing it. Level 3, conscious competence. In the third level, you may have begun to work on or practice some of these advanced techniques. It can be difficult for you to perform without thinking about it too. You must continue to work at it to see progress. Level 4, unconscious competence. This is where you would like to be with all your skills. You can perform wave dashing automatically. It's like riding a bike, you never forget. L cancels come naturally. You don't have to consider whether you should or not. No longer needing to think frees up your mental capacity to do more. If you find yourself falling back into bad habits, you're not quite at this stage yet. One extra thing about the 4th stage though, is that flaws in old habits can still crop up. What I mean is you can still be good at doing bad decisions automatically. Maybe you automatically shield drop aerial anytime someone is below you. As Tendler puts it so well, flaws are skills. Something to know about using the ALM is that you want to be working on specific parts of your game at a time. You don't want to multitask. It's good to know the stage your specific skill is at. If you don't know where a specific skill resides, you won't have an idea of how to improve it. Try putting a bunch of your skills into a list like this, and then see how you feel after categorizing them. Do you feel you have a better idea of your skill level? Do you have a better idea of how to improve things? Do you simply feel less mentally overwhelmed? Try it out and let me know in the comments. Inchworm is the next concept, and is all about visualizing how your improvement works over time. It's also important for numerous reasons. It will make your improvement more efficient, it will make your improvement more consistent while avoiding common traps, it will help you know where certain skills are in the learning process, it will also help you handle the ups and downs of learning better, it will also help you be honest with your level of skill. Another great quote to support the Inchworm concept: there will be times when it feels like you have taken a huge step backward, not progressed at all, or fallen back into old habits. The next time this happens, think about the Inchworm. The best way to understand Inchworm is by viewing this graph first of all. You can see we have a range of levels we play at. We have our worst performances as our C game, our average performances is the B game, and our very peak performances at A, which of course everyone is striving for. The thing is, we're not always going to play at our peak. Just as we are not perfect as human beings, so too we are not perfect melee players. It's just simply not realistic. This acceptance can take away a lot of the stress from expectations. It's essential to be honest with the reality of your range and not what you think it is. The average is also constantly moving, especially for competitive games and if you're constantly learning. If you're learning, that means there's range in the quality of your decision making. Let's define each side a bit more so you really get what I mean by peak and valley. These are your best performances, the absolute peak of your gameplay. Think about the sets and tournaments you played when you felt like you were in flow, you knew everything your opponent would do, and it felt like you couldn't lose. Skills from stage 3 can still be included in these performances. Surprisingly, it's not all stage 4. These little edges can help make the difference. This is your valley, the absolute worst you've ever played. You may find it painful to think about, or straight up avoid it altogether, but try to think of your worst performances. It's the games when you make terrible decisions, you know they are happening, but you still do them. This side is very often related to mental game issues, but melee issues can still happen. Something that happens to me a lot recently is I will start panic rolling. I understand this is not a good situation to roll in, but it still happens instinctually. Another way to visualize the inchworm is the insect itself. If you look at the way an inchworm is shaped, it's like the bell curve in the graph we looked at earlier. The inchworm will stretch out again, broadening its range until it sinks back in again to create the bell curve shape. When the inchworm stretches out like this, it indicates that your range has expanded. Your peak has improved, but we must improve the back end to be able to hit a nice average again. This is why improvement has to come from both sides. The only way to take a step forward is to allow the back to catch up. Let's now discuss two common learning mistakes when it comes to the inchworm. The first one is ignoring weaknesses. As I mentioned before, your curve will become flat if you only focus on the front end. You'll play better at your peak, but this will come with many issues, such as rarely playing at your peak and it taking a significant mental effort to do so. Also, when you aren't playing well, you'll play especially badly. When you're focusing on all your strengths and learning new things, they won't even show up in your gameplay because you're likely influenced by tilt or poor focus from your backhand, which can of course create a negative spiral. For these reasons, it's important to correct your weaknesses to stage 4. A good time to do this is when you see new improvements in your peak. This process helps you to remain humble, helping you to understand you still have faults to work on while maintaining efficiency. The second learning mistake is all about comparing your worst to your best. You'll find a lot of people, when having a bad tournament, will compare this experience to one of the best tournaments they have had, or a very recent one. This isn't a great way of looking at things, since you're comparing the front end of your range to the back end. Instead, compare apples to apples, and think about another time you played badly. How different was it? It's important to maintain this kind of perspective to keep the focus on improvement. This situation is also a great time to find out what you really know and what skills are still showing clearly when you're under intense pressure. Finally, let's talk about the third concept, which is the process model. This model organizes consistently reoccurring aspects of your play that you can use the previous concepts in tandem with. This will help you to play at a high level, along with improving your skills efficiently. It can also be applied to many different scenarios. One neutral interaction, one friendly session, a tournament, a month of playing, a year, or a whole career. Check out this diagram to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Also, here are the 5 stages of the model in summary. Now, let's talk about each of them in more detail. Preparation is anything you do before you play, whether that thing is random or not. It's important because it increases the consistency of your play. It's possible to still play poorly after prepping, but it's much less likely to happen. As for what you could do for preparation, it entirely depends on your preferences and goals. A quick little 10-15 minute warm up before you play usually does no harm, but a lot of people have their own methods, like a walk before a tournament to get your head in the right place. Here's a list of some ideas you could try yourself. This stage is all about the player getting to put their skills to the test. The previous stage should hopefully start you off at the highest level you're capable of, but if you avoid it, it can mean you're warming up during your actual performance games. It's important to note that during performance, you should not be dipping into the other stages, such as evaluation. Multitasking in a way like this will make you play much worse. This doesn't mean you can't adapt to your opponent mid-game, but too much can be excessive, and spending too much time on it means you don't know your adaptations well enough. You are no different from a quarterback making up a play instead of calling out one his team already knows well. Don't evaluate, make a quick note, and refocus. You can measure results in many different ways, most of which people do are easily quantified. Wins and losses, how many stocks you won or lost by, win rate, etc. It's imperative to think about it in terms of qualitative results, how well you played, your level of focus, degree of tilt control, and your improvement or weaknesses. When someone focuses on wins or losses, their emotions can feel like they're on a roller coaster because they're so attached to the rewards of winning. It's okay to be attached to winning, but it's ignoring the qualitative results which cause this to happen. It's these results you actually have control over, and it may take some practice to get your emotions used to this type of thinking. If you want a good summary of how you played during a session, quizzing yourself immediately afterwards is the best time. You will miss some details, but you'll also get a general idea. Here's some advice to use when evaluating your game. Look closely at tough decisions to see how you played them. Estimate how much variance influenced the results. Calculate whether you accomplished the qualitative goals you set. If you didn't, why? Review how you did in areas you're trying to improve. Did you see progress? If there are parts you want to analyze for later, write them down before you forget. Evaluating your matches is important, even just for a little bit. It can help to clear your mind and feel more refreshed the next time you play. Analysis and evaluation sound really similar, but what analysis is looking at your game away from a performance environment and in much greater detail. A lot of people tend to find this step quite tedious and even skip it altogether, but it's an incredibly valuable one. You don't typically do this immediately after a session to let your previous performance sink in a little. Once you have done this, you can take these results into your next process model and apply them to the first step. In summary, the process model helps you to organize all this complex stuff tied to your performance and improvement in an efficient way. Using this consistently over long periods of time will net the best results. You want to use the process model all the time. Most players are only negatively motivated, like when they perform poorly or didn't match up to their expectations. There's no need to wait for this to happen. Melee is incredibly competitive, and consistently working at your game is the best way to gain an edge over the competition. I hope this was a good introduction to this mental game series and insightful toward the foundation and its 3 concepts. Make sure you take your time to learn and implement these things. They're not an overnight thing, and you'll always be improving these fundamental aspects of the mental game. I'm sure you will see some improvements quickly though if you're just beginning to implement them. Please let me know if there are things I can do to improve the video, and if you have questions. I can do my best to answer them too. I appreciate all the support recently, and I'll catch you all for now.